Monsieur Singh, bienvenue. My name is Jade, and I am a founding member of Young Global Citizens and also a grade 7 student at Blessed Sacrament School in Vancouver, promised to us a long time ago by our teacher. Merci d'avoir accepté cette entrevue et pour votre présence aujourd'hui. We also welcome all schools who are connected into this Zoom as spectators. Nous souhaitons la bienvenue à toutes nos écoles francophones.
Nous reconnaissons que nous occupons le territoire autochtone non cédé de la nation Musqueam, Squamish, et Tsleil-Waututh. Mr. Singh, today 10 of our students will ask you questions that we prepared with our teachers. 8 questions will be in English. 2 seront en français. We know your time is limited today, so please feel free to make some answers short and some answers long. Êtes-vous prêt à commencer, monsieur?
Je suis prêt.
Bien.
Bonjour, Mr. Singh. Je m'appelle Emma. Sa
Bonjour.
question porte sur les réseaux sociaux. You have acquired a following and a reputation for being a master of memes and social media. We think this is great and part of why we like you. However, social media needs to be handled carefully because of disinformation and because of misuse or abuse. What advice do you have for all of our TikTok and other social media users?
Okay, I would say try as much as possible to be creators instead of just consumers. So try to make something or film something as opposed to just watching stuff. I think that's important. Also, as much as it's so important to connect with each other, it's a great tool. Like I use it because it's a good way to be able to speak to people. But it's also really important to spend time outdoors and spend time off your screen. So balancing that in your life, I think is important. And then for misinformation, something that you'll learn more and more about, you should always check the source. So when there's an information or something you read, double check who is saying it. You know, who did the research? Is it a university? Is it a public institution? It's like something that you recognize. Is it like the government of Canada or a school, like the university in your local city or province? Then you know that it might be more reliable. So checking the source, make sure you balance your time on the screen with outdoors and with your friends and with people. Now, of course, limited because of COVID-19, and try to create things instead of just watching things.
Merci.
Je vous en prie.
Mon nom est Zachary.
Hey, Zachary.
Cette question porte sur la santé des jeunes. You study mixed martial arts as a way of disciplining yourself, building confidence, and protecting yourself. You believe physical, mental, and emotional health must be very important to you. Do you have advice for young people whose emotional or mental health is suffering from the lack of interaction due to social interaction due to COVID?
Yes, I do. I have advice. Physical activity, whatever you can do, try to move. We are meant to move. That's why it feels so good. You know, when you go for a walk or when you're doing sports, it just feels good because we are meant to move. So move as much as possible. I did lots of martial arts and I really enjoyed that. But you don't have to do one specific activity. Whatever speaks to you. Don't feel limited. If you try to do something that you don't like, you might end up being discouraged and not doing it. But I do encourage you to try things though. You might think you don't like something, but if you do it and you try it out, give it a chance, you might end up loving it. So be open to different activities, try them out, but do what you love. If you love going for a walk, go for a walk. If you like to run, run. But definitely physical activity is a really important way to handle mental health and to make sure you're feeling okay in this tough time. Talk about it. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't really talk about the things I was going through. I just bottled it up, but talk about it. Si vous avez des problèmes dans votre vie, parlez avec quelqu'un. It's okay to ask for help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pouvez-vous nous parler de votre travail cette année au Parlement? Comment le COVID vous affecte-t-il? Quels sont les projets de loi ou les objectifs sur lesquels vous travaillez?
Merci. Comme vous tous, la COVID-19 nous a affecté beaucoup et ça a affecté notre travail. Et maintenant, on a moins des gens qui travaillent dans le bureau. C'est réduit, les nombres sont réduits à cause de la COVID-19. Et je trouve que c'est difficile de connecter avec mon équipe propre parce que sans avoir l'occasion de jaser en personne, de parler en personne, c'est difficile. Donc, ce sont des défis. Et ce qu'on essaie de faire avec les projets de loi, ma priorité, c'est d'aider des gens. On priorise les gens avec l'aide financière, mais aussi l'environnement. C'est aussi tellement important pour nous. Donc, on essaie de livrer l'aide aux gens, aux familles, aux beaux-parents, mais aussi on essaie de toujours rappeler comment on peut faire face à l'autre crise, la crise climatique qui existe toujours. Merci.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Chloé. Cette question parle de la diversité. You are a member of Parliament for Burnaby South, just minutes away from us. There is a lot of diversity here and we are used to it. We think it makes us richer. However, there are many parts of Canada where there is not as much diversity. What message do you have for young people who may be a bit scared or who do not know a lot about Sikhs or other faith? What is your message? Regarding diversity to all Canadians?
Well, I think we need, this is really important. I think that we have to celebrate, like be really happy and enjoy and celebrate who we are. It's not enough to just accept people, but we need to celebrate the fact that there is beautiful differences in the world and those are okay. And even though people might speak different languages and come from different places and have different faiths, that they are just as worthy and have the right to have all the same opportunities and resources. And that's really important to me, that it's not just about saying, we accept other people, but we celebrate that people will be different, and that's good, and that we can build a world where we live together and take care of one another. That's really my message.
Merci.
Merci.
Nous aimerons parler des femmes. We would like to ask about the NDP views on women. What are human rights and why are women and youth especially targeted when it comes to human rights? Why should we be especially protective of women and young people? Why are women particularly vulnerable in times of global crisis? How can we help make sure women are more protected from violence everywhere? How can women receive help and support?
Thank you for the question. And I'm sad that you still have to ask the question because it's a reality. There is the reason why, simple answer is those who are more vulnerable because of power imbalances are more likely to be the victims or survivors of violence. So when we look at kind of just something as simple as pay, and women in society get paid less for the same work, there's a power imbalance. And because of that, when people have less power, they're more likely, or it's possible for them to be exploited or to be vulnerable to violence. And so we need to fight against that. So when we talk about how to address, like how to fix the fact that women are paid less for the exact same work, if we deal with that, we give more power to women. I think that's really important. We also need to look directly at supports. When people are faced with violence, when women are faced with violence, sometimes there's nowhere to go. There's no place, a safe space, a shelter. So we need to make sure that there's shelters, safe spaces, with services like these help and support programs that people need so they can actually find affordable housing and find a way to get out of a scary situation. So we have to acknowledge that this is a power imbalance in society. Children and women are far more often the victims of violence because of that, and we have to work and do everything we can to change that so that doesn't continue. And so in the future, maybe you won't have to ask the question, but it's a very important question. And I hope to be a part of the solution to fixing this.
Merci.
Je vous en prie.
Cette question porte sur la citoyenneté. Our name is Young Global Citizens. We would like to talk about the notion of being global citizens. Recently, we spoke to Senator Mobina S.B. Jaffa, who committed to the writing to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about providing water to the First Nation we serve who do not have access to clean water. We also committed to make this a focus for our movement. Our question is, what is your message on social justice and equality for all Canadians, especially regarding First Nations and minorities?
For this question, I want to talk about something my mom taught me. She said to me always growing up that we are all connected, that we are all one. And I didn't understand what she meant initially because it sounded really hard to understand, but it does make a lot of sense. Maybe we see some differences, but really we have more in common. There's more things that connect us as humans. So this idea of being a global citizen is realizing that we're all connected. If there's a pandemic, it impacts all of us. If the environment is hurting, it can't just happen in one spot. The environment is going to impact everybody across the whole planet. So we are really connected. And I really believe in that. And so social justice comes from the idea, if we're all connected, well, if my friend or someone I don't know is hurting and they're faced with trouble and problems, then I'm also faced with those problems. Like if someone else is hurting, I'm hurting. And if we help the people around us, we're also helping ourselves. So that's where I think of when I think of social justice. And for Indigenous people, we need to look at them as our friends, our neighbors, people we may not know personally, but they're connected to us, and they're faced with really big troubles, big challenges. And one of the biggest ones is that people came to this place, stole a lot of their resources, all of their resources, and now they don't have basic things like water. So we have to make sure they have access to water, equal funding, education, and we can do that. We can absolutely do it. So I'm fighting for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonjour. Nous aimerions en savoir plus sur votre plateforme. We would specifically like to ask about your views on universal income, abolishing tuition fees, university providing more access to healthcare, and other distinguishing feature of the NDP that you would like to teach us about. We also want to know why you would make a good Prime Minister for Canada.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the last one because I'm make life better for people, and I'm not afraid to call out the things that are wrong. And one of the big things that we want to do is give help to people when they can't work, when they're not able to work because of a physical disability or because they lost their job. So that basic income is basically how do we help people? How do we give people support or help them when they're in a tough time in their life? We want to be able to do that better. I think that COVID has shown that we're not that good at it. There were a lot of problems in our system to help people when they were struggling. So we want to get better at that. That's something I really believe in. There's also this thing where like your parents, your teachers, they all pay their fair share in taxes, but the richest companies, they don't really give back. And it doesn't make sense that someone who's got the most to share doesn't share fairly. And so one of the big things we're focused on is if we ask the really richest companies, the big ones like Amazon and Walmart, we ask them to pay their fair share, we can actually take care of each other better. So that's another really big thing. We also want to fight for the environment to make sure we protect the water, the land, and the air. That's really a big part of what we believe in. And then healthcare. New Democrats, the healthcare system that we have, that was a big part of who we are. That is still a big part of who we are. The first NDP leader, so I'm the 8th leader. The first leader was a person that everyone gives credit to for having brought forward universal healthcare, the healthcare that we have in our country. So I want to build on that and make sure your medication is covered and you're covered when you go in for mental health supports. Your teeth are also covered in healthcare. I want it to be head to toe. So the question about university, that all your healthcare should be covered whether you go to school or not. And then I don't think there should be any barriers. For any kid that wants to go to school, there shouldn't be any barriers. There shouldn't be that you're worried because it costs too much and you don't go to university. I want everyone to be able to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonjour. Nous aimerions connaître les qualités d'un bon chef. BC encourages us to communicate, think critically, and have awareness of ourselves and others. What other qualities do you think
are most important for us to be leaders of the future?
Okay. I think it's really important to care about people around you, like compassion, to be really compassionate and caring. I also think this is a tricky one. It's tricky for young people too, is that you have to be able to do two different things as a leader. You have to be able to be decisive and make a decision, but you also have to be willing to hear the opinions of your team and change your mind. So you can't be so stuck in one way of thinking. You have to be open to hearing different opinions, but you also have to be able to make a decision. So it's an interesting balance because you have to be open-minded, but also decisive. So I think those are important things. But above everything, compassion, really caring about people is one of the most important traits in a leader.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonjour, monsieur. Nous
Bonjour.
aimerions discuter de l'environnement. How can this generation help avoid a climate crisis that would devastate the earth?
Immediate action. And we can do it if we make this a priority. Si on fait face à la crise climatique comme on vraiment veut gagner, on peut gagner. We can win. And what we have to do is, there's a lot of changes, but all the ways that we're hurting the environment, the way we make energy, the way we get around, and the way we live in our buildings. These are the three things: housing, transportation, and the way we make energy. Each of these three things we can change in a really major way to reduce emissions. So we can get around with public transit and that with transportation that is zero emissions, so like electric cars. We can make sure our buildings, our homes, or schools are retrofitted, so they fix them, so they use less energy. That will help us reduce our emissions, like the pollution that we put out. And then the way we generate energy. In BC, where Blessed Sacrament is, we have a lot of hydroelectric energy, which is great, energy that is zero emissions, it doesn't pollute the environment, but we need to make sure we are creating energy that doesn't pollute. So those are three things. And then I really think that if this is a priority, we can make governments push towards the right decisions to actually save us from a disaster in the future.
Merci, monsieur.
Je vous en prie.
Bonjour. Nous aimerions un message d'espoir à propos de l'intimidation. You had a difficult time growing up in the suburbs of Toronto, facing prejudice, racism, and bullying. From the first time we studied about you, we were inspired by your strength and determination from a young age. What message would you have today if even just one of us young people is feeling very depressed and about to give up?
Definitely, please don't give up and ask for help. One of my biggest things that I didn't do when I was a kid is I didn't ask for help. And I was too embarrassed, too shy. I felt like it would be a burden on someone. I thought it would be too hard on someone else to tell them what I was going through. So I didn't, but that was the wrong thing to do. So make sure you ask for help. There are so many people that want to help out. So please ask for help. Second thing is that I really believe in this thing called, in my language, or the language my mom taught me, it's called anik. And anik means confidence, or it's believing in your own self-value, in your own self-worth. So sometimes when you're confident at math, you're confident in math because you're better than everyone else. But as soon as someone who's better than you comes along, you all of a sudden don't feel confident anymore. That's not very strong in the sense of confidence. A stronger confidence is about your own self-worth. It's not really comparing yourself to anyone else. It's not about being better than the next person. It's just about knowing that you have, just because of who you are, an own value or worth, just because of who you are. And celebrating that, understanding that, really taking time to be like, you know what, I am worthwhile. That's really a big part of how you have that resilience, knowing that you have value and you're important and you matter just because you're you. And that will help in challenges sometimes that you face.
Merci.
Je vous en prie.
Monsieur Singh, pour terminer, la Fondation des jeunes citoyens travaille depuis 3 ans sur leur mouvement des jeunes citoyens. Mais nous avons besoin de plus d'expertise et soutien. Avez-vous des conseils pour nous? Comment pouvons-nous faire un réseau solide et une réelle différence dans le monde?
Premièrement, une grande félicitation pour le travail que vous avez fait. C'est incroyable et les questions étaient impressionnantes. Donc, je pense continuer avec ce que vous déjà fait. C'est magnifique. En plus, l'idée de parler avec les autres, si jamais j'ai des questions, je n'hésite pas d'appeler quelqu'un que je sais a d'expertise dans un particulier métier, une question particulière. Donc, toujours chercher les gens qui ont de l'expertise dans une question, dans un sujet, et ne lâche pas. C'est le plus important élément de mouvement pour changer le monde, c'est de jamais arrêter de faire le travail. Si on continue de faire l'effort, on va réussir. Donc, continuez et toujours avec la compassion pour les gens, avec l'amour, un peu de courage et vous pouvez aller de l'avant pour changer le monde.
D'accord, merci.
Je vous en prie.
Merci infiniment pour votre temps, monsieur. Nous espérons vous revoir et de continuer de travailler ensemble pour un Canada meilleur et un monde meilleur.
Merci, je vous en prie, c'était vraiment un plaisir.
Au revoir, messieurs. Au revoir.
Bonne journée.
Bonne journée.
Bonne journée.